Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Create Elementia, where we create a theme park in Minecraft. Now, I know it's been a hot minute since the previous video. Sorry about that. It has been very, very hectic at work. I have not had a full weekend in about 2 months. So, yeah. Fun time. With that being said, we're finally... We have a visitor inside the inventory, it looks like. We're finally back, and as per usual for the rotation, this episode is going to be working on the backstage area, which, as you can see, is not a whole lot right now. In fact, it is a grand total of 3 buildings and a tiny tree farm, which is not really very useful. But you did see I've got a bunch of space cleared out there, and you will see a short time lapse very shortly of me clearing that out. And we're going to start working on the entryway for the backstage area, and I'm hoping the HR building. So let's get right to it.
To enjoy the clear, cold days of winter, when the earth is buried under its glistening blanket of snow.
Welcome back, everybody. As you can see, we have completed a fair bit. So, I apologize because normally I would have a bit more done. However, I want to get this video out by the end of this month, and it is very close to my deadline. So, I'm going to do some of this work off camera between episodes, and I will have a bit of a recap in the next episode about what exactly I did off screen. So, I do apologize about that, but I'm trying to get these out a bit more often now that work is settled. So the first area that we've finally started to flesh out is the employee entrance. So the employee entrance is modeled kind of off of Universal Studios entrance. This kind of overhang here is actually part of this building right over here, which I'll get into at a later video, but it will be mostly office space. Then you've got a queue line or kettle pen, whatever term you want to use. Though it does have a couple of gates if they need to shorten or lengthen the queue. This is just so that they have a way of lining up the employees as they're getting checked in so that they're off of the roadway area. Because this is over here. I haven't quite fully planned out how this area is going to look just yet, but it will be essentially a drop-off place for the transport buses and probably some parking area as well as for if like you're getting a ride share like an Uber or some similar company. This would be where they would drop you off or pick you up. So you go through this. There'd be a little kiosk here. I haven't figured out how I want the kiosk to look, but it's essentially your ID check-in to make sure they know who you are, that you're checking in, that you're supposed to be there. And then you go through your scanners. The scanners also I'm still trying to flesh out. I apologize. They are very similar to what you'd find at, say, a airport security. So you put your baggage, all of your items on the belt. It goes through the scanner. You walk through the metal detector, and then you pick up your items here. These tables at Universal would actually be over here. They are for kind of putting everything back together after you've had to take it all apart for the scanning. Also, it's a good place if you need to set down your stuff while you put your belt back on, which I used very often. This is one of the entrances to this building. It is not really filled, as you can see, but it is got a kind of vague footprint in my mind on how I want stuff to set up. So that will be happening off camera, and I will hopefully show that off in a few episodes from now. This is where we've got a bit more work done. You can see we've got a big open area now. This is going to be the future site of the wardrobe. So where all your employees get their costumes on or their outfits for whatever role they're doing. And also you'd have a team member shop. I say team member, a employee shop. Typically surplus or like snacks for when they're leaving. You would also sell there. Here, this is our HR building, which is mostly empty right now. However, there is some furniture set up that I do have a better idea of what I want. These are two of the meeting rooms. These are just outlines for where the walls are, but there will be a bunch of chairs and great view out onto the sea from here. If you go upstairs, it's mostly just going to be cubicles like this. As such, I do want to put stuff in these cubicles, make them more fleshed out. So if you have any ideas on what you guys think would be good to have in these cubicles, or you have ideas for who these cubicles belong to, please make sure you leave those down in the comment section. I would love to see what you guys come up with. We have a total of 12. Sorry, miscounted. Got 16? I'm having to do brain stuff. No, there's 20 cubicles on this floor. Next floor up would also have 20 cubicles, though I don't have them in yet. And then there's currently two cubicles down here, and then a bunch of open space. So if you have any ideas for what should go in here on top of what I'm already planning, please let me know. I would love to hear your suggestions. That being said, we are starting to actually get to a more cohesive layout of kind of the backstage area, as well as the kind of roadways. So originally, at the very start of the series, I was planning on having the team member park, or the team member parking area over in this area. And then you would get to it via, or get backstage via a boat. I'm actually planning on changing that so it's actually a bus instead of a boat. There will be a boat, but it's for some of the bigger transportation that you would want to stay off of a bridge. There will be a bridge, oops, that will be spanning this gap right here. That will be servicing both as a way to get to the backstage area as well as the future uh, hotel resort that is going to be likely somewhere around in this area or this area. I haven't quite figured that out yet. But that will eventually also need a name. So if you guys want to name either of those, I will gladly see your suggestions and hopefully we get a good name out of it. But all that being said, despite how little progress it seems like there was actually a fair bit of progress that happened off camera. So I do apologize. It's the nature of doing time lapses. Some stuff gets lost in translation. It doesn't always come off very well. But that being said, our next episode is going to be a fun one. We are working on the park again. We are starting to work on the scales, which I'm really excited for because that's going to be a interesting challenge architecturally for how I want to design that. But as always, if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down here. There we are. And then a if you want to see more in stuff like this or any of the other series that I will be posting hopefully shortly soonish, as well as some of the revived series that I am planning on working on again. Make sure you hit the subscribe button somewhere over here. And as always, if you enjoyed this, please make sure you leave a comment down below and leave a thumbs up if you really, really enjoyed it. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye!